What up, everyone? This is the Pat Mayo Experience. There will be BMW Championship, DraftKings picks, and previews, and giveaways, and all that fun stuff. But unfortunately, I recorded the show with Ben Rasa, who everyone should go follow at JazzRazDFS, and the video absolutely crapped out. So there will be no video for this. I've decided to put a cover over it because the audio turned out it was fine. So all the podcasts will work normally, all the giveaways will work normally. It's just you're not going to see all this handsome visage for the entire show, probably to the benefit of everyone watching at home. So the full show is here in its entirety, so enjoy.
Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, BMW Championship, DraftKings picks in preview. If you out there want to get into a draw for 20 DK dollars, give me your favorite play below $7,500 this week in the DraftKings system after you smash the like button and leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. That easy. We're trying to get to 2,000 iTunes reviews before the commencement of the NFL season. If you haven't checked out any of the NFL shows so far, I mean, what's wrong with you? Give your head a shake. You can go do that on the DraftKings YouTube channel or up on my audio podcast feed, Pat Mayo Experience, where you want to rate 5 stars after you subscribe, leave your DraftKings handle, and something you like about the show. Boom, you're in a draw for 20 DK bucks. All winners will be announced on next Monday's show with Jeff Feinberg, the finale of the golf season, breaking down the Tour Championship. That won't be the end of Jeff. We'll have more Tim back on. Football's coming. Ben Rosa's on the line from Osmo.com. Ben, are you ready for football or what?
I'm getting there. Little by little, I'm feeling pretty good. I've been doing some work over at Osmo, getting team previews ready. So I think I'll be ready come September.
Well, on DraftKings this week for the final, I mean, it's only 70 players this week in the BMW Championship. It's a no-cut event, but there's a $8 tournament with $1 million total prize pool, and it sounds pretty enticing to me. But the one you want to play in, the Pat Mayo Experience Open, rake-free, $15 to enter, 3 max entry, the best tournament on DraftKings, 4,000 spots this week. It's almost like 75% full as we speak on a Tuesday afternoon. So people want to go get in that very quickly. You can find it in the description of the podcast or Facebook video. If you have the YouTube video, there'll be a link to get to the link because we don't want to be banned for life. But get in that now, even if you reserve your spot, because you don't want to miss out on that. Plus, I mean, we saw Fantasy National members kill it 2 weeks ago. We had a few Fantasy National members in the Fantasy Golf World Championships last week. And look, golf takes 2 weeks off. That's it. And the swing season is really where you want to cash in by using the tools. Who are these new guys? How are they playing? That's what Fantasy National is going to tell you. It's a huge edge, especially during the swing, more so during the swing season. So get it now, fantasynational.com. Become a member today. Ben Rasa, you were in the Fantasy Golf World Championships.
I was.
You had
with Griot. It was a weird one. I got a lot of messages from really sharp people just feeling my Griot pain. I had a really good team, but obviously we all saw him miss on the number by being dead last around the green and second to last putting, the rare combination. But I did come in 7th, which obviously, you can't complain about that, even though I am complaining because I was right there with a 5 of 6.
Yeah, you had the best 5 of 6 lineup, I'd imagine, of anyone in that competition.
Yeah, one of the best, if not the best. It was up there, and it was just, story of what you got to make it on the number. You got to find a way to make one of those putts. I really thought Griot would find his way in, and then there was opportunities. That's even 5 of 6. Rory, Usti, they were climbing, just couldn't get over the top. I did have Reed, but overall, it's certainly not the worst week I've ever had, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this week. The BMW Championship, like I mentioned, 70 players in the field, barring some withdrawals. Let's see if Tiger withdraws. I don't think that Rafa Cabrera is going to play, but hey, he might. He just had a baby. Maybe he'll use some of that baby swag and get himself into the Tour Championship finals. Who knows? Next week, it's only 30. It's one of the worst DraftKings events of the season. That's why we made it 4,000 entries this week. It's almost the season finale of my DraftKings Golf Open. Well, there will be another one next week, but it probably won't be as big. And frankly, it's just not as fun. Like that year, everyone took Furyk and he withdrew. I mean, you're dead in the water immediately. Like if anyone withdraws on your team, even this week in a no-cut event, because you get all 4 rounds of that scoring to go. But Medina's, I don't want to say it's an unknown, but it's an unknown in this sort of play. We saw it at the 1999-2006 PGA Championship. Tiger won both. We saw it at the 2012 Ryder Cup. And there's a lot of guys in the field this week who were in that 2012 Ryder Cup. So what do you make of this course? Because there's a lot of right to left dog legs. It's super long. It's over 7,600 yards. And even some of the par fives, like you're just straight up not getting there in two.
Yeah, it is pretty long. It's interesting though when you look at kind of how it's long. You just mentioned there's a couple of par fives over 600 yards. There's a bunch of par fours that are in that, mid 440, 450 type range. It adds up quickly, but overall, I don't think you have to be a bomber. I know guys will be hitting driver certainly here and there, but it doesn't seem like every hole you want to pull driver because you mentioned the dog legs. There's not a huge advantage on a lot of these holes for being aggressive.
So does that lead you to, well, you said not necessarily a bomber? Like when I did my weighting on Fantasy National, I weighted strokes gained approach, strokes gained off the tee, because that's the two most important things you can do. Unless you're Griot and you lose the ability to putt, then give the finger to the ball, then that's a bit of a different story. I mean, that's really hard to project for. The guys that are good off the tee, unless you're Dustin Johnson on the two final rounds of the weekend, tend to be pretty good off the tee all the time. Approach kind of wavers a little bit. The good approach players are generally the good approach players, but I actually factored in more accuracy than any driving distance whatsoever, because I think you're gonna, not to say if you hit it in the trees, because these are tree line fairways that you won't be able to advance the ball. Fried Egg Polly's on the course right now because he's local to the area, taking a lot of questions. I asked him, like, what happens if you hit it in the trees? And he was like, it's a lot like Riviera. It's a lot like Firestone. Like, you're not getting on the green if you're in the trees, but it's not a 3-yard chip out the other way unless you're directly stuck on like a tree trunk. You can advance the ball a little bit. So I actually think that around the green is going to matter here a lot, along with driving accuracy, coupled with that long iron play, which a lot of guys are just going to be hitting long irons.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, something like fairways gained, you want to gain off the tee. Most of the top end guys these days, when we look at the pricing, they just happen to be bombers, but I don't think it's a prerequisite. So if you're effective, even if you're a little back, you're going to be hitting longer irons, but guys are used to that. It's not a problem. And then timely scrambling is definitely going to be, this isn't going to be a super, obviously, birdie fest. It's not going to be brutal either, but you're definitely going to have to scramble in spurts.
So I'm looking right now. I sorted on Fantasy National just by courses that measure over 7,400 yards. That's one of the easy filters. You just click, it resorts the stats. I'm looking at tee to green right now. Who do you think is inside the top 10 over the past 50 rounds in courses over 7,400 yards?
Rory.
Rory is number 1. Yes, that is
correct. That's right. That's because he's man.
Then
Rahm.
Dustin. Rahm is not. It's Rory, Dustin, Casey, Scott, Woodland, Hideki, Day, JT, Rose, Molinari are the top 10. Fowler is number 11.
Yeah, I mean, Molinari is an easy example of what you're kind of talking about. He's not the longest hitter, but he's going to consistently gain off the tee. Normally, I would plug Day in this spot, but I don't. I mean, we'll talk about him a little more when we get down there. Obviously, he dropped Stevie Williams. That didn't work. He's just been awful. Been killing me for the last month or so.
Yeah, maybe the caddy switch does something for him. Maybe
it can't get worse. So,
this is true.
I don't know about that. And yeah, you mentioned guys like Decky. They're the long irons suit them better in some ways than a wedge fest. So that does make sense when attacking these longer courses.
So let's talk about the players over $10,000 in pricing, because this is where I'm actually having the most difficulty constructing my lineups, because I'm not someone who plays 150. I'm probably only going to end up with 1, maybe 2 if I split it up of these guys, and there's 6 of them this week. And I'm kind of sold on 1, and the other one I have a spot for. So you have Brooks, 11.8, Rory, 11.5, then Rahm, Dustin, Rose, and Thomas, all in that $10,000 range, up to $11,000. Obviously, I've been coming on the show for weeks saying how much I like Justin Thomas. That hasn't changed. Again, he just lit it up with his irons. He actually drove the ball well. And hey, he made a few putts. He came T12, but if he just gains 2 strokes putting, all of a sudden it's a great week for Justin Thomas. If he gains over 2.5 strokes putting this week, he probably wins, doesn't he?
I mean, he's been, obviously the irons have been on fire. And the results, it hasn't been a great stretch, but at the same time, 12th, 11th, right in the hunt and just on the cusp. Just needs to clean up that putter, and historically we've seen him get hot with that. It'll turn eventually. Will it be this week? I obviously have no idea, but I do like him. He's flat 10K. Obviously, he gives you the most wiggle room. If you are spending up for one of these 6, you're going to have the most salary to spend on the other 5.
So who is it? I mean, every week you come on, you talk about Rory. You're addicted to Rory. Is Rory the guy for you?
Yeah, I think, it's been a weird stretch for him where, 4th and 6th, but it feels underwhelming, especially Memphis. Obviously, Brooks dusted him. Last week, just not great with the irons again. He's putting pretty well, which is a little weird just because usually when Rory putts, he wins off the tee. Obviously, I think he's clearly the best. The guy that I have the most trouble with is Rahm because talk about recent form. He's just unstoppable right now. Easily could have won last week, just consistently producing. So it's tough. Like you mentioned, you can't take all these guys. I'd say I'd go Rory first if I was paying all the way up and probably Rahm second. And then JT as a little salary saver, even though he is one of these top guys.
Yeah, I look at Brooks, Rahm, and Rory. They're all pretty expensive, and I'm just trying to project out ownership. I think all three of them are going to carry a vast amount. You can even pair them together if you really wanted to, based on this being a no-cut event. There are some guys at the bottom that you would think suit this course pretty well. You can match them up. Hopefully they make a few birdies. I just look at Dustin. I don't know what happened to him on the weekend, but I guarantee you everyone's going to look at that weekend and be like, Dustin has lost it. I'm not taking him. I think he comes in the lowest owned of these six guys.
Yeah, I would say him and Rose are probably fifth and sixth in ownership. And I totally see it. Obviously, it's not hard to make a case for DJ, but that was the most often lost I've seen him in a long time. Every time, I mean, he was playing with speed. That's a kiss of death. But every time they showed him, he was just all over the course. So he needs to fix it in a hurry. Obviously, this hasn't been a great stretch from him.
So I'm looking right now. I have it separated by 175 to 200 yards and 200 yards plus in terms of proximity gained on approaches. All 4 rounds at the Northern Trust, Dustin actually gained in both of those stats against the field. And that's a very competitive field. I think that's something to really look at. He normally gains in both, but he was specifically good from both those ranges. And he's actually lost strokes off the tee in 4 of his past 6 rounds, which just seems mind-boggling. He still sits inside the top 10 overall in strokes gained off the tee over the past 24 rounds. I think there's just a very compelling case that if you're going to have to outweigh, like you have to approach this like a WGC, that it's a no-cut event. You're going to have to leave money on the table. That I don't have the utmost faith in Dustin because he's kind of, I don't want to say brutal. He's just not been Dustin-esque quality. And all these other guys have just been so good. You just mentioned it. Rahm's on a heater. Rory's on a heater. If Brooks decides like he wants to play this week, he's probably going to win. Justin Thomas, we know the ball striking has been there. The putting hasn't. With Dustin, it's just sort of a mind fuck, to tell you the truth, that I think that there is value in taking him here. He's cheaper. He's going to be lower owned. And if you just talked about ideal skill sets for this course, he has the ideal skill set.
He certainly has the skill set. It's just really, this is not one tournament. It's been a bad stretch for him when you look back over the past couple months since the PGA, really. So if the ownership is significant, if you're talking a third or something like that, then maybe I will make some teams and then just straight, build them with Rory or Rahm and then just straight pivot to DJ, leave the 700 on the table, obviously, or 800, and that'll be unique. But overall, I really just think he is behind these guys right now with his recent form.
So if that's the case, let's say we cross off Dustin. I'm going to take Justin Thomas. That leaves me with room for one other guy. I do think that Rory and Rahm are going to come in plus 20%. I think that's probably a pretty good move, that those guys are the most likely. I guess, Brooks is up there too, but Brooks just never carries the same ownership as Rory or Rahm, especially coming off not a bad week, but a non-winning week for Brooks that usually just like kills all of his ownership. Plus the price that he comes in. It's a lot to swallow. But I think I'll end up fading Rory. I'll end up fading Rahm, trying to hope that neither one of those two guys wins and one of the other top guys wins. And that would just actually lead me back to Brooks and maybe Rose. Because if we talk about the skill set again for this course, long irons, good driver, that's Justin Rose.
I've been playing Rose certainly not successfully though. His just blow up at the Open, I'm still bitter from, but obviously he is putting the lights out. He's been doing that for a while now. The irons are hit and miss. Honestly, off the tee, it's always pretty good. Nothing, it's not in a Rory Rahm category, but it's good enough. And he's also, these are why these guys are priced up here. Another really good stretch of golfs from him. Hadn't really contended, but, third at the U.S. Open. Other than that, string of top tens and whatnot. It's going to be one of the lower owned. I have no problem with him. It's hard for me to make him a priority given that I like Rory and Rahm.
All right, so you're going Rory and Rahm. I'm going to go Brooks and JT. That's where I'm going to build my core around. But I probably won't go as weighty on Brooks, probably like 30% of my lineup. So 6 to 20 will have Brooks in them, and hopefully that's enough.
So, yeah, right off the bat, like if that's the path you're taking, you have more options kind of as we work down because you have more natural leverage. Like a lot of people are going to start with Rory or Rahm. So if that is how I choose to do it, I'm going to have to be more cognizant as we work down to make sure, not that I do anything insane, but I certainly can't just take the chalk as we work down or I'm going to be duped a ton.
So, I mean, you could always just leave like $400 on the table. Then
Yeah,
you
that'll
probably,
do it too.
yeah, it'd probably be pretty good. But yeah, I would say the most common starts are going to be Rory Rahm, although that's super pricey. You're probably looking at one of those two guys, and then Justin Thomas or Cantlay, or along with Rory or Rahm. I would say that's the most likely build to start.
I agree. Yeah, I would say pairing them up, I don't think will be. I haven't obviously built yet, but I imagine that will leave you in the sewers. So that's a tough ask. But I think one of them with, as you said, either JT or Cantlay, definitely gonna be a popular build.
So in the 9K range, Cantlay does kick it off. I'm going back to Cantlay again. I know the elevated price is up. He made the most birdies of anyone in the field last week. Although the stats weren't particularly good long-term wise, they're very, very good. And he has been on a downward trajectory here over the past little bit. But I still like his skill set for this course, especially the fact that he's gotten a lot better around the greens, because I do think that's actually going to play a factor this week. After him, it's last week's winner Reed, Webb, Scott, Fleetwood. If there's another 9K guy to take, it does seem like everyone's just going to use Adam Scott again, because everyone kind of does that. But Fleetwood and Reed seem to be the two that are just going to get overlooked here.
Yeah, Fleetwood is really interesting. Obviously, he should have got cut in a lot of ways, somehow survived. But you look at the stats, I mean, it was his worst iron week in a very long time. So bad that I think it's pretty easy outlier. I don't think that's an indicative trend. Struck it well off the tee. And, this is a guy that obviously he was on a great stretch before last week. So I have no problem going to him at flat 9K. Cantlay, he totally makes sense. I'm certainly bitter. I faded him last week, and I thought that he didn't deserve to finish where he did. He had a streak late with a chip in, really crafty around the greens, made a lot of putts as well. So he needs to get back to his ball striking, but he is an incredible player. So I don't mind that at, just sub 10K.
It does look like Cantlay is going to be super highly owned, as are Scott and Webb. If you had to choose, are you going to play Cantlay this week, do you think, or would you go to a Scott or Webb at chalk, or is this a fade area for you?
I may have a little Cantlay, but certainly not on my Rory or Rahm teams. I don't really think that's a build that I want to get too heavy in. If I had to pick one of the three, it would be Scott and buy into that chalk. I'm not a Webb guy. When his price is up, I know he's been great, but just not for me. Honestly, I like Patrick Reed. I was on him heavy last week. I don't worry about burnout with him. He likes to play, and obviously now he's in the hunt. So if he's going to be low owned, I have no problem trying to piggyback the win and see what he can do here.
Yeah, and it looks like you might get single-digit ownership on Reed, too, with the price bump, and people don't like to play players the week that they're coming off a win. He's never strung together back-to-back wins in his career before, but very few players have. So
Yeah,
Adam Scott's one that can string together wins. Jordan Spieth is a guy. Tiger, they string together wins. And we'll see if Patrick Reed can do that too. It just seemed like he hit his max in everything he needed to do last week. The scrambling was absolutely on point. It reminded me a lot of his Masters performance, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been waiting for that from Reed. Obviously, it's building up. And I'm not saying I love it. Honestly, I would rather play Fleetwood and take a little savings, but it's just, you're going to have to be cognizant of ownership this week. You really are, because there's only, 69, 68 players, whatever we get. You don't have that much room. So someone like Reed, I have no problem. Bryson is another guy that I'd put with the guys you mentioned. Obviously, he can get crazy hot, but it's not like a couple, people can rip off a couple FedEx wins in a row, no doubt.
So if we go into the $8,000, actually, I'm going to go with Cantlay and Fleetwood as my two guys from the 9K. Spieth kicks it off. It's really hard to judge ownership with Spieth now, because if you're looking at any sort of advanced modeling and ownership projections of people who play week after week after week, they're not going to take Jordan Spieth. However, Jordan Spieth coming off a pretty good week, tied for sixth in a really good field amongst the public. I think that whatever you project his ownership to be, increase it by 3-4%.
So Spieth's one of those guys that I really think ownership, you see it vary by I know a lot of guys it varies by contest, but he's one of the main guys where in some of the bigger, lower end tournaments where there's more casual people, they like to play Spieth. They see that finish. I could see him creeping up. And then, in some of the other types of tournaments, people are a little hesitant because they realize that he can't strike the ball off the tee and he needs to gain 8 strokes putting, which apparently he can do decently often. not for me, obviously, but I'll be interested to see how much ownership he garners in all these contests.
Well, right after him, it is Fowler, Louis, Xander, Finau, Casey, Bryson, Billy Ho, Hideki, Kuchar, Day, Snedeker, Tiger, Ian Poulter. That's the entire $8,000 range. And the chalk right now is really sticking to Paul Casey is probably the highest owned guy, Hideki probably coming in second, and Finau coming in fourth. That'd be my best guess at who's going to be chalk from the $8,000 range. Strangely, my favorite guy in this entire range is Ian Poulter at $8,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, I thought you were going to say Sneds. I'm not going to lie.
No, I just look at Poulter. He played the PGA Championship here in 2006, came inside the top 10. He led all players at the Ryder Cup in 2012 at this course. If it's going to be one of these situations where everyone is forced into long irons and you have to rely on your short game, I kind of like him in that spot a little bit more. He plays par threes really well. Putting's going to go up and down week to week, but he is someone who, generally speaking, is really good around the greens and pretty good on the greens once he gets on. And even when you look at some of his wins, they've been on bent grass in the past. That I like the experience that he has with this course. There's very few guys that have any to speak of. He does, and he was lights out on approach last week. He was third in the field at the Northern Trust on irons. And if you can just keep that going, maybe not gain 7 again, but gain like 5, and if this is a course where he can just keep the ball on the fairway and that will gain him strokes off the tee. He gained strokes off the tee last week for the first time in like 3 months since the RBC Heritage. If that's going to be the case, and he plays a draw, and I think that's going to be very important this week with so many dog legs that you're going to see some guys, dial it down off the tee to make sure they get to the right spots. It feels like Poulter can just hit driver.
Oh man, that's a pretty good case. I'm gonna end up with some Pults. He was incredible. Obviously I was looking over the iron statistics from last week, and obviously Usti, who can't make a putt, was ungodly, but Poulter was right up there as well. So flat 8K, I mean, I'm going to be funneled to this position. I'm going to definitely need someone in the low 8K range. I'm interested in Bryson. Poulter, as you mentioned, I do think that's worth monitoring. Like I just alluded to him. What do you think of Usti? 8,700, insane with the irons last week. I think this is a good course, but I always feel a little risky trying to push my luck with a guy like that.
Yeah, it's been 3 consecutive weeks where he's gained I mean, if we believe the strokes gained from the Open, which I don't really because they all seem out of whack, let's just say 2 weeks in a row he's gained over 3 strokes with his irons. He gained 9 last week. That's not going to happen again. But he is consistently one of the best around the green players in the biz. So if he is missing, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But the last time that he gained strokes in consecutive events with his irons was at the Genesis and WGC Mexico, 0.8 and 1.6. Before that, you have to go back to the PGA and Northern Trust last year when he was rolling a heater, came second and came 10th. Like, I just worry that this is now 3 consecutive tournaments where he's gained with the irons. It's going to flip back the other way kind of soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's pushing your luck that he just hasn't withdrawn lately. I like him. Again, the thing with Usti, and I've talked ad nauseum about this during the year, when he's popular, just the way he plays, I tend to come in under. And when he's 3-5%, obviously this is a 70 man, so it's a little different. But when he's under-owned, I like to take shots with him because we've seen even last week, really nice ownership on that guy. And if he made a couple more putts, he would have been right there. So I'm going to monitor him. Obviously, it's amazing to see Ricky sub 9K and not generating a ton of buzz. Really disappointing miscut last week. I don't have a strong take on him, but I will say I just am surprised that he's not garnering more interest just on the price alone.
If you look at any sort of long-term form and how he would rate out for this course, it's kind of incredible. Like, he's one of the best players in the field. When you just think about what Ricky does well, this is a perfect course for him. I think people are just kind of scared off by what they saw last week. But like I mentioned to Feinberg on the Monday show, he hadn't played since the Open. Like, it's been like a month since he played.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Ricky guy. Obviously, I tend to think he's better than most people. I know, got no majors, as we all know. He just, he needs to get this putter in order. It's not a Spieth level, but at the same time, Ricky's going to do his thing tee to green, but he needs to hold these putts. He needs to outclass them on the greens because that's his formula. So, he's on bent. I would really hope he can bounce back with the putter and have everything else follow. I probably get over the field on him unless somehow he steams, but I did want to, 8,800. It really did stick out when I was looking at the pricing.
Yeah, I have him around like 14 to 16%. I actually have Louis around 15% as well,
Yes,
which I found kind of
that's
surprising.
Cool, man.
And
That's
it's
scary.
and it's funny, like when you kind of put, yeah, I'm just looking at Fantasy National right now, and there's only been, let's see here as we do this, 5,287 lineups generated on a Tuesday afternoon so far. People have favorited Tony Finau 41% of the time. His calculated ownership is around 14%, but he's only actually coming up in 7% of generated lineups. That it feels like people want to use Tony Finau, and they see all these other options around him, then they don't end up using him.
That can be, a situation when you talk about how builds sometimes fall. You get leapfrogged, and there's a lot of names in here. And then, if you start with one of those top guys we talked about, and then you take, say, a Cantlay, sometimes you just naturally are like, all right, I only have one spot. Let me use Casey, or let me go and get Decky, something like that. So you have to be aware that sometimes a guy just is in a natural dead zone with a common build. I'm sure Fino will get his, because he is popular. Obviously, not great last week. I was on him and couldn't make a putt when he needed to, but he should set up well for this course as well.
It does seem like after the week off, everyone is just going back to Paul Casey. And anytime Paul Casey is 21%, probably not the week for me to use Paul Casey.
Bad things happen. Yeah, I totally understand why people, this should be a course again. Ball striker, keep it in play, do his thing. I just feel like in a non-cut, I'm going to try to probably be pretty aggressive and hope that he has a middling finish. And there's a million pivots that I'll take my chances that they can hit their ceiling. And Paul Casey just has a solid week, but not anything that's going to derail me in GPPs.
Tony Finau hasn't gained strokes putting since he came second at the Charles Schwab. He then missed 3 consecutive cuts after that, Memorial US Open Travelers. And then still, even when he came 23rd at the 3M, lost strokes. Lost 2.5 last week, came 30th. Lost 3.2 at the St. Jude, ended up coming T27. It just feels like if he can get lucky on these greens a little bit, and historically, Bent is the only place where he generally putts okay, that maybe it's a time to go back to Tony. Like, I'm just trying to assess this entire $8,000 area. I told you I love Poulter. Maybe I had Bryson start, I had Hideki start, but maybe I take it off Hideki, put it on to Horschel, and use Finau as well. Because Horschel was rolling with his irons and the ball striking until last week, and his irons just went cold.
Yeah, and then he miraculous, and then he makes that cut somehow by putting the lights out. Billy Ho living well, but yeah, I would rather take a shot with someone like Bryson, even with Decky. I know he's going to be popular, but to me, just a different class of player. Finau's tough because, he was putting awful and he's been putting awful. The irons weren't there. They're starting to get a little better. Obviously off the tee, that's a strength of his. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but there's a lot of names in here. You're not going to be able to get everyone in the 8K range. So you just really have to prioritize what you want to do.
All right, so if we go with 3 from the 8K range, we're going to go with Poulter, I'm going to go with Bryson, and I'm going to go with Hideki. Those are going to be my 3.
I'm going to go with Bryson, Ricky. Boy, you really sold me on Poulter. I'm going to put him in there. I think that's a really interesting play. Hopefully this doesn't move that ownership too much, but I think you make a really good case for kind of what we want at this course with Poulter.
Well, thank you. So I look forward to losing money on Ian Poulter.
Yeah, this is a kiss of death for both of us. But what about, I know we've just discussed all these guys. Do you have any interest in Tiger, assuming he says he's good?
As someone who used Tiger last week, I can tell you that was not a fun experience whatsoever.
Not good.
I would think that theoretically that he sets up really well for this course, having won it twice, and what he consistently does well is what this course demands. Just, I don't know where he's at health-wise.
I don't think I can get there. It's just, man, to see him flat 8K, that was appealing. But I'm with you. I would hope that, I will say, if he tees it up, I'd be pretty shocked at another withdrawal. I feel like if he's going to withdraw, and I have a feeling he will, it will be before Thursday.
I would think so too. But you don't want to get into a streak where you're withdrawing. But it would just be too hard for me. The fact that he was unable to go last week, that all of a sudden he's going to turn it around and be a top 5 guy. I guess if anyone can do it, it's Tiger. And maybe it's the coward's approach. If you're not just after having the WD last week, it wasn't as important. I actually had a pretty good week, even though I didn't have Reed. I had basically everyone else at the top of that leaderboard. But I don't know, in this field, it just sinks all of your lineups.
Yeah, you're done. You're 100% cooked. I'm with you. I think more often than not, it feels like you got to get things right multiple times. He's got to play, and then it's not just if he plays, you're good. Then he's got to play well. He's not super expensive, but he's not super cheap either.
$7,000 level. Let's just talk about some of your favorites in here. I like Ryan Moore. I said I wouldn't bet him at 66-1 because that just seemed like a really bizarre pricing for who he is. But I do like why does he have better odds than Shane Lowry and the same as Leishman and guys like this? It's because he's been ball striking out of this world the past two events. I can't get a gauge on whether he'll be popular or not, but if I talk about like the Ian Poulter type of player, shorter hitter, very accurate, good with long irons, good around the green, you hope he can make some putts. I mean, that's Ryan Moore. And if this is going to become a case where two of the par fives are not reachable to the entire field, it brings these guys back into play more because they actually play a lot of par fives with 3 strokes and they're used to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the Zach Johnson when he used to be good formula. Ryan Moore is interesting. I'm going to go right below him to Kisner. That's just a guy that I've been on. He's doing exactly what I like to see. He's gaining with his irons, gained 5 strokes putting last week. That's a Kis formula. Just keep that going. The distance won't bother him. And honestly, Molinari is 7,800. I'm not super sold on him. He's back to being awful on the greens.
Yeah.
But at the same time, his price is starting to readjust. He used to be in the 9K range not that long ago with guys this caliber.
Yeah, if you're going to like target this area, I think that's an interesting strategy, taking some of the shorter hitters off the tee. Like you go Molinari, Moore, and Kisner. Like if you wanted to start Cantlay, Justin Thomas with your team, you could afford those guys, all 3 of them in your lineup if you wanted to. If you're going to like stack skill sets together, I think that's an interesting stack to use.
Yeah, I think people naturally, they see a course 7,600 yards and they just think, oh my God, I got to just take bombers. And that's just not the case. And like you said, the par fives actually, they're so long that it helps these type of guys because they weren't going to be getting there unless they were really short. So it's leveling the playing field and they're more used to hitting, those wedges in than, dare I say, someone like Rory who, I mean, how many times does he have 85 yards left to the fringe or to the left rough? I mean, he can't stick it close with those short wedges.
The one I'm really intrigued about, especially if they're just going to use driver off the tee and hit their fairways and just the fact that that they're going to gain strokes with their driver regardless of the shot shape. I mean, Answer's coming off a second. We see this happen in the FedEx Cup playoffs. And I'm just trying to look at the ownership projection for him right now. I would have a tough time wrapping my mind around what it's going to be, but I kind of want to ride the form with Abraham Answer.
Oh boy. I mean, he was fantastic tee to green. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, I'm not saying he's a good player. I don't think he's as good as most of these guys, to be honest, but he is playing well, strong off the tee. Him and Kokrak are both there, kind of similar. They're going to gain off the tee. Approach has been good. Obviously, the short games are a little sketchy. I worry a bit if the irons aren't as crisp with him scrambling a lot in a field like this, but I think there is some merit if you do want to go there, probably low ownership.
Yeah, the other one I was trying to think of in that area is Morikawa. That he was overpriced last week. He's probably still a bit overpriced right now at $7,900. Again, the same as Gary Woodland. And Kokrak down there as well, Answer at 77. But if we just think about like skill sets for players, he had a bad week last week. And maybe when you look at his strokes gain stats, they're not entirely indicative of how good he actually is because he piled up a ton tee to green at the 3M, at the John Deere. He won the Barracuda. These are not against elite fields, but you're still getting a very talented player in this range. I do like the Kisners, the Ryan Moores of the world a lot better than like Morikawa if it's coming down to it. But if you're just thinking about upside purposes, Answer and Morikawa are the two that really kind of draw my eye.
Yeah, Morikawa, I think, is kind of a wild card situation. I'm more in the camp that he's, I'm not saying he's not a good player. He obviously is, but it's just a different mentality when you're not trying to shoot 22 under, 25 under, and you're beating up on these weak fields. So I wasn't impressed. He's another guy. I know I'm a broken record, and I'm bitter because Griot's the only one that missed on the number. Morikawa should have missed that cut. Ended up getting to that weekend and not really rebounding. He didn't do much. But he did find the weekend. So I'm more apt to drop down. There's guys, Benny on, Sunjay Im, in the lower sevens if I needed to take another guy from this range.
So here's the problem with some of those guys, because I too, of course, I like Ben An. When do I not like Ben
Come
An?
on.
The one week I didn't like Ben An, he came in second or third or whatever it was. Perfect. Thanks, Ben, for showing up for never for me, but for everyone else. But projected ownership wise, I got Ben An as like him and Neiman are going to draw a ton of ownership down in this range, and so is Sung Jae. Those are the three guys everyone's going to. And like I can make a pretty compelling case that Harold Varner might be the best of the bunch coming off the week he just had. Again, probably an outlier, the best that you're going to see of Harold Varner week at $7,200, but he's the best player in this field over the past 50 rounds in proximity from beyond 200 yards. And again, do you just ride a FedEx Cup heater with him?
Yeah, I mean, he's in that bucket. Obviously, you talked about Answer. He was certainly in it. Missed a couple shorties late, and he really would have been obviously in the mix, could have won. Andrew Putnam is the other name there who he's kind of an anomaly to me. He can't gain off the tee, but man, he's an elite putter and everything else is really solid. I tend to still say I'll probably try to find a way to take maybe the lowest of the 300 of those guys. Obviously, if like Benyan's up in the stratosphere, that's going to be a tough sell. But if Im is in the middling, popular but not outrageous, I really do like him just compared to these other guys.
Any love for your boy Sabatini?
So my boy, all right. Not really, honestly. I don't know. He kind of reminds me of Casey in the sense I don't think he's going to play horrible, but at the same time, I think I can get by without going to him. Kind of like we saw last week. He was fine. He made the cut, 43rd. I hope that's what we see again.
Yeah, it's weird that we talk about this range and all the players we're talking about. We don't talk about Woodland, Shane Lowry, Mark Leishman, the good players in this range.
Leishman, I mean, I was waiting for you to bring that up because I can't with him. I don't understand. This guy is just, it's impossible. I swear to God, I jump on him. He was awful at the Open. He looked like a great player in Memphis, then just disappointing once again. And I just have a really tough time getting a grasp. Obviously, we know he can get going, but he lost across the board. Nothing crazy, but he lost strokes everywhere last week and missed the cut. Just not even competitive. I don't know what to make of that.
The guy that I'm really drawn to, because the stats really like him, the one thing he cannot do, especially lately, is do anything around the green. So if he's not hitting fairways and he's not hitting greens, he's absolutely cooked. But Chez Reavie is $7,000. No one is going to use Chez Reavie, and he kind of fits the mold of these types of players that we were targeting. They're going to hit fairways. They're really good with their long irons, and they're not the specific skill set that everyone's going to target. And the results haven't been there for him recently, but the irons and the driving have been there for sure. Like, he's 8th off the tee over the past 24 rounds. He's 8th in strokes gained ball striking over the past 24 rounds. He's 13th in approach. The guy couldn't putt last week, but he's an average putter. He just sucks around the greens.
Yeah, he's really, really bad around the greens. He's in the Cheston Hadley whirlwind of that, but that's just kind of a risk within itself because you do have a window. Now, it's a tough ask because these are small greens, but if you say, if he gets fire, maybe the course is a little soft, especially Thursday. If he can pepper, rack up the greens, we know the rest of the game kind of fits what we want to do here. It's just a matter of how bad is the punishment if he isn't able to hold these greens, or if the irons just are a little off. That could be a quick death for a guy like Chez.
Last 24 rounds, no player in the field is better on approaches from beyond 175 yards than Chez Reavie.
Yeah, that's disturbing.
I know. It's not what he's 11th in 175 to 200 and second from 200 and beyond. He's one of the few players that actually meets up really well in the middle. The other one, I guess we'll go into the 6K range right now. Another guy that I don't think people are going to use, but I feel like, again, sticking with this theme of this type of player that we're using, I think Hadwin's super live here to have, not a win, obviously, but T12.
So that's the guy I was going to bring up against Chez. He's 6,900, not going to be popular. Hasn't really been doing much. You look at the recent form. He was 4th at 3M, but since then, not much. And the stats are kind of underwhelming. But when you step back and think of Hadwin, kind of in general, I like his game for this course. He can be timely with the scrambling. The distance isn't going to bother him. And if he can just hold his own off the tee, I actually think this sets up pretty well. He can get hot on bent grass. And like I said, in a field like this, he really shouldn't be popular.
Yeah, he's top 10 in the past 24 rounds and over 200 approaches. He's top 10 in fairways gained. He's top 10 on par threes from over 200 yards as well. We'll see 3 of those this week. You talk about a lot of the distance being made up in those longer par fives. The same situation actually occurs on the par threes. There are no short par threes on the scores, and 3 of them are over water.
Yeah, that's dangerously insane. Hadwin's just like I said, he's someone too that he can compete in a field like this. I know it's a stronger field, but he's shown that he can hang in. Obviously, you're not asking much. It's a non-cut, but he doesn't need to get in the mix to win. He just needs to be effective and outdo these other, the Keegans of the world who are sitting right next to him.
So I think that a lot of the ownership is going to gravitate towards 3 guys in the $6,000 area. One is Jim Furyk. The other one is your boy, Emiliano Grillo, and Corey Connors at $6,600. I think those are the 3 guys you kind of need to figure out. If you're in on all 3 of them, maybe figure out the one that you really like and use that guy.
Yeah, well, you should bring on someone who has a more sane approach to this guy. I don't know what to say about Grillo. I know you're supposed to have a short memory, but I need the Men in Black, thing to wipe. It's just, I don't know how you can be that bad, around the green and putting. Obviously, Furyk, it's complete opposite. He just does his thing. He's another candidate. Those par fives, no chance. Obviously, he's reaching most of them, and this sets up perfectly. This is what he naturally likes to do. So I don't mind that, but at the same time, in a non-cut, Furyk, not exactly what I like to do. I'll probably look to get away from all 3 of them. I guess if I have to choose, it would be Grillo again, because I'm a sucker. And what can I say? But 6,700. I mean, when you strike it that well, you got to at least consider him, right?
I think so as well. Like the guy that I actually like is sandwiched right in between them. I think that just no one is using Dylan Fratelli, and he sets up for what we want here. He's very good off the tee. He's very good around the greens. And he just won an event by losing strokes on approach. Probably wouldn't have to have that happen again, but he's someone that can light up birdies in a hurry if you need them. And there are birdies out on this course. You just have to be able to save yourself when things go horribly wrong. And he seems like one of those guys. Even if you look at Grillo, you look at Connors, like they're absolute garbage around the greens.
Yeah, garbage. That's how I describe them. Not good. Fratelli, yeah, he's such a weird guy. He's someone I've really been strongly on all year. The stats are all over, but he shows the flashes. Even last week, he was up there for a bit, then he obviously faded, but he can get crazy out with the irons. The putter needs to cooperate. Looking down, I mean, we can't go to Phil, right?
Is Phil going to hit a fairway the entire week?
No, I think it's pretty safe to say no.
If I was trying to think of do I want a combination of guys that hit the fairway, can and down here, you're just not going to find a lot of these guys that are good in all these different aspects. Like Wyndham Clark's really good around the greens. Graham McDowell, I think, is super intriguing here. I didn't even hear his name brought up once last week, and he was a disaster last week. And maybe just not a coastal course, don't use Graham McDowell, but the putting's really good. The scrambling's always really good, and he doesn't normally lose 4 strokes on approach and 3 off the tee.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy, to tell you the truth, you're right. I barely knew he was around. This is where it gets murky. Obviously, you're going to, if you pay up, especially if you pair up 2 of those top guys, you're going to need someone down here. I would expect your boy, Siwoo Kim, will generate some buzz. He's shown some flashes. I actually kind of like.
Listen, after he ended up going +8, +7 on the weekend, I don't think people are going to be super. I don't think they're going to be. He lost 8 strokes putting.
I mean, he was.
Look at these stats. Look at these stats. There's 70 people in this field. Here's how he ranks.
Yeah, that's not good. Look at that off the tee, right in the top half.
Yeah, well, and he's 12th in fairways gained, so he hits the fairway a lot. But he's just such a. I don't know. I bet him to win because I bet him to win every week, and I try to keep him as far away from my DraftKings lineups as possible. But he does seem. Out of all these back end players, who's the guy that can come out here and come third? It feels like it's him.
I mean, it's hard to argue against if you're just talking purely win equity, top 5 equity. It would be him or Ryan Palmer. I like CT Pan probably the best, but that's because I think that he has more opportunity for a top 20, which is I'll gladly take. in this situation. I will say, Siwoo, did you notice how fast he finished on Sunday? Because he had no one in front of him. That was a speed round.
Yeah, he finished 4 holes ahead of the group behind him.
Yeah, just flying through, making bogeys.
So this is what I'm looking at. Ownership-wise, what I'm looking at. Connors is going to be super highly owned. So is Palmer. So is Kevin Tway and potentially Keith Mitchell.
Yeah,
People are loading up on bombers, man.
that's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that can't work, but 7,600 yards, people just naturally are, oh, yeah, Cam Champ and the gang. I really don't see that. Can it be effective? Sure. Will I have some bomber stacks? Probably. But I'm not throwing out guys like CT Pan. Obviously, Kevin Knott has withdrawn. Don't play him. But that type of player, I think, could be effective. Even in a field like this, looking down, there's not much. I was going to say Lord Raiden with Dahmen, but I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, like every time that CT Pan, he even lost strokes at the Heritage off the tee. The guy loses a lot of strokes off the tee, but he's good with long irons. He's great around the greens, and he was good with his irons last week.
He was, and you just talked about he's really crafty around the green, and he's not bothered. He's someone that, again, I know this is the theme kind of this show. He's used to hitting long irons. He's used to laying up on par fives. That's not going to bother him. It's just, can he just be a flat zero off the tee? Can he just hold it together and let the ball striking take over?
That's very interesting. So now I got to try to figure. I got Hadwin and Fratelli. Those are my 2 from the $6,000 range. If I throw one more into the mix, like, do you have, like I said, Palmer, Tway, and Mitchell are going to be pretty highly owned. Do you have any faith that Cam Champ may have turned it around?
No.
None.
Nope. Literally zero.
All right. What about Max Homa then?
Yeah, more apt to say he's, Cam Champ, being serious, when I just look at him, I don't know what to make of it. For a guy that hits it that long, he have a stretch where he was losing off the tee. The putter's bad. The irons are always bad. I can't get there. Max Homa, he had a bad Sunday. He played with Rory, but he was up there, putted kind of well. He's another one, though. You talked about Ches. Max Homa, if he's missing greens, that's going to be a quick death for you.
Yeah, that's one of the things that you'll see with a lot of guys down here. Like the best player, I guess, Nas out, is Wyndham Clark. He's second in this field in strokes gained around the green. Then it's like McDowell at 30th. Everyone else is kind of a disaster down here, whether it's Kang, whether it's Lashley, or Long, or even JB Holmes to that effect. But Holmes is just one of these guys that can pop up out of nowhere and win. We know that.
Yeah, Holmes, honestly, I should revise. And like I said, I'm not advocating playing him. Most likely I'm going to have 0. But you were saying Siwoo, randomly come in top 3. That's JB Holmes in a nutshell. He's awful. And then boom, Genesis, boom, random place. It may take a while, but he ends up paying off here and there, even though I have no faith that he does it this week.
All right. Maybe I will pivot off of Connors and go to Pan. We'll see.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe McDowell. I'm going to make a final conclusion on that. People can check out my cheat sheet up on dkplaybook.com when that ends up coming out. Man, this is tough. Keegan, the defending champ of the BMW Championship?
I see, again, a bitter price point. Like, Keegan screwed me last year in the golf final. Griot this year. Those two, I don't know. It's just so hard to trust those guys with the way they putt. But I think Keegan's going to be somewhat, I don't want to say popular, but it's not like he's going to be sneaky. People see the ball striking and kind of naturally go to him.
So I'm looking at it right now, Cameron Champ. It's really funny to go look at his splits. So his average stroke gained by a round in terms of how hard the course actually plays. On easy courses, he loses a 0.15 strokes per round. On average difficulty courses, almost over a half stroke per round. On difficult courses, he's gaining 0.4 of a stroke per round. In calm conditions, he loses strokes against the field. In moderate conditions, he loses strokes against the field. In windy AF, in conditions over 17 miles per hour, he gains a stroke on the field.
All right. Well, so future British Open champ Cameron Champ. There you go.
That's what we're talking about.
All right. I'll file that away for when there's brutal, windy conditions. I don't think that's this week for Champ.
Yeah. All right, Ben Rasa. It's been fun. I was talking to Feinberg yesterday. I think we've done every single tournament this year, which is shocking. I feel like I missed one somewhere, but I can't remember when it was.
That's awesome. Yeah, you've been rattling them off. It's been a long year, ton of fun. And as you said, just a minor break. And then we get a whole new class of guys. Hopefully Hovland will be one of them to talk about in the swing season.
Did you look anything at the Korn Ferry Tour this week? For the Tour Championship?
A little. Just checking out some names and whatnot. Do you think, I know it's a totally random question, you think Hovland's going to make it?
I think so. Like I played some doubles with him. Brooks JT. I have doubled with Hovland to win, and I have Brooks and JT doubled with Adam Svensson to win. And I actually bet Adam Svensson to win at 90-1 as well with that.
Grayson's in there, isn't he?
There's a whole bunch of guys. I was like, oh geez, Kevin Chappell. Like Kevin Chappell's 55-1 to win the Korn.
The return.
Yeah, like if he's semi-healthy, besides Hovland, he's the best guy. Like Kevin Chappell's 55-1. Christopher Ventura is 28-1.
Yeah, I don't. Ace's brother, I guess. There's a lot of guys, obviously, that'll be there. Hopefully, I saw Lahiri has to get his. I'm praying he can get his card back. I'll miss him if he's thrown off the tour. A lot of names that we are somewhat familiar with vying to stay on tour for sure.
Yeah, even like dropping down to this like 100 level, like David Hearn is 140-1 to win this. Like, why can't David Hearn win this?
Maybe he will. Yeah, and your fellow Canadian. Why not?
Where's Gim? Doug Gim? Like Doug Gim played well at the Masters. He's 150-1 to win this.
Gim Reaper, that guy.
Oh my God, John. I haven't heard of him in ages. He's 150-1. Like these
There's
are
so many. It's just.
I don't get how like Alex Prue is 100. TJ Vogel. Oh man, remember TJ Vogel qualifying for all those events last year?
Yeah, that guy's the Monday specialist. Where's Grayson?
Grayson's like 55. Yeah, he's 55-1. He's the same as Scotty Scheffler, Kevin Chappell, and Hollywood Hoagie. Sharma is in this field. He's 60-1. Lipsky. Like, Lipsky's a really good Euro player.
Lipsky, that's right, my speed. I figured he would be in the Czech Republic doing his thing, but I guess he's over here.
Yeah, maybe that's a bet? I don't know. Just feels like Hovland goes out and just crushes all these guys. Harding's in this field, too. He's 30-1.
Well, that guy. Easy game when you can just 10 strokes putting every single week. But it's going to be fun. That is one of the benefits of swing season. If you have the time and you do the work, you can get an edge because people don't know who these new guys are, and you can, gain a lot of insight from, those early starts that we can take advantage of.
Oh, Eric, straight out of Compton. How does this even work anyway? Is this like one event or is it like 3 events? Do you know?
Are you kidding me? No, literally no idea. I think it's a cumulative. It's kind of like the FedEx Cup, but if this is all completely wrong, just remember I said I didn't know at the top, but I think it's like that. And then, the top 25, they get their cards, and there's all extensions though. I never know who's in and who's out with priority and whatnot.
Well, considering I've been betting Adam Svensson on the PGA Tour at 110-1, like for a month, I'm going to take him at 90-1 to win the Korn Ferry. Seems
wise. Yep.
Yeah. That's almost like, I don't know who Harry Higgs is, but he has better odds than Grayson Murray.
Yeah, that's a creative player. Is Bill Haas isn't over there, right?
Bill Haas. No, he is not in.
All right. And speaking of another random question, I know just throwing this out. Where's Ben Martin? Another one of my favorites.
I don't know.
Is he just gone forever? I miss him.
Ben Martin. He's in this field. He's 140-1.
Well, that'll be something I'll have to explore after the show. I don't know what he's been doing. I know he was hurt, but Bermuda Benny back in action. That's amazing.
Who else? Tyson Alexander, 75-1. Like it just is.
Who?
I don't know. The guy who won. The guy who won last week, Bo Hogue. He's 50-1.
Bo Hogue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we got like the Duncans and the Harkins. They're all in here. Jaeger, Ben Crane. Yep. Like, is that Zalateros? Is that how you say that guy's name?
Oh, Will. Yeah, that guy, the Wake Forest. He's Bill Haas alumni. Who else? What about Seamus?
Oh, Power? Seamus is 90-1. He's right by the bod, Hank Leboidia.
Yeah.
Lebioda. Oh man, I like Hammer and Hank, but just for the amount of times that I mispronounce his name, I kind of hope he doesn't make it through.
Oh yeah, that's a factor for sure.
Like, does Hovland have to win in order to get in?
No, definitely not.
I really should.
When I say definitely not, I don't think so.
How do Korn Ferry playoffs work?
No, I think he just has to come, in the allotted amount of cards that they give out, because he should get in regardless, but obviously they didn't count his amateur stuff, and now they changed the rule.
Yeah. That kind of, because that would have got him in if he had if he had that U.S. Open finish. That would have been enough points to get him in, like to qualify for a card. I just don't even know how that works. This is the wrong show to come to.
Yeah, no, don't. Obviously, I have no idea what I'm talking about with this stuff. I will say it definitely makes for fun betting, though. You've got me interested. Right after we end this, I'm going to go and take a look at some of these guys and try to take a couple stabs.
Yeah, we got to play some. If we do think that Hovland's like by far the best player in this field, you got to double him with someone.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be running some doubles. Maybe I'll double him on the Euro side. Take a couple guys from Czech. See what I can do.
Did you look at all at the Czech?
A little. Matthias Schwab is just it's on the EVR type. I'm just going to bet him until he wins. I think he's going to be great. So I bet him. That's the only bet I've locked in. Bjork is over there. There's some players. Haven't dug too deep.
I believe the past 4 winners of this event all have the last name starting in P. I thought I read that.
Well,
so there you go.
Things.
That's what you need to know. You got Pepperell, he's the favorite. Peters is 16-1. Pavon, who I believe won last year, is 20-1. And then you really got to go searching for another. Hayden Porteous, 50-1.
Oh, that guy.
Renatu Patore is 80-1. Oh God, this gets down here. Oh, Mathieu Pavon is 125-1. Got to take one of these. Paul Peterson, 100. I think that guy's American, isn't he? Paul Peterson.
I don't know if he's American, but he was in an event over here recently. Maybe Wyndham.
Maybe
he was. He's definitely.
Yeah, he was in the Wyndham. He came T36 at the Wyndham.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, that guy's here. Is Kiefer playing?
Oh, Maximilian.
Yeah, my man.
Let's see, Max Schmidt. No, only Max Oren and Max Schmidt are playing.
Sad. But yeah, Matthias Schwab is a guy that I really think he's getting closer. He hasn't obviously broke through. That's coming though. So maybe I'll pair him up with one of these creative players and see what we can do.
Yeah, he's the same odds as Victor Dubesson this week.
Oh boy.
I would love to see a comeback from Victor Dubesson. He had the best hair in the biz.
Yeah, that guy's quality. I respect that. Yeah, maybe he'll get back in business.
He also had one of the greatest shots ever in the match play out of the desert when they played at Dove Mountain.
See, I don't remember that.
He lost it. I think he came second to Jason Day that year, or he won the 3rd place match, whatever it was. Anyway, Ben Rasa, you'll be back for football, I'm sure. We'll do some swing season talk as well over the coming weeks, but tell everyone what's on the go over at awesemo.com.
Yeah, we are getting ready as you are. As you know, football is here, putting out team previews, putting out season-long content in addition to all the DFS. Obviously, we got projections, we got articles, we got videos. So it's just all systems go there. Obviously, baseball, golf, that stuff's not going away, but football is here. So stop on by. We'd love to have you in. Ton of promo codes out there. Give it a try, and we hope to see you for football season and swing season, as you pointed out.
Can you tell at least one promo code instead of there's a lot?
Yeah, I'll just say promo code JazzRaz. That's the easiest one. There you go. Put that in, 50% off your first month. Give it a try.
All right. Follow Ben on Twitter at JazzRazDFS as well. I'm Pat Mayo. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the PME. Become a member of Fantasy National, play in the Pat Mayo Experience Open, and get into them draws for the 20 DK bucks. Who couldn't use a Millie Maker ticket to Week 1 NFL? All right, I got a ton of football coming up. We're not done with golf yet. We got the BMW. We got the Tour Championship next week, and that'll be a lot of fun. That's full-time football until the swing season starts at the Greenbrier like 3 weeks from now. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck this week. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!